everyone, and welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. Now releasing mid-afternoon for anyone who is waiting for the episode because, life happens. Nobody to blame, but if you are looking for somebody to blame, Sierra would be the person. So my bad on that one, friends. But hopefully everybody is doing well. Joe Brown, regular co-host. No surprises that you're here. How are you doing today?
Yeah. Whether it's a Monday night or a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night or a Thursday afternoon, whenever we're recording, I'm going to try to be here for OHKO. So, it is what it is. Life happens, and we're taking a bit of a breather this week, to resting up for hopefully a nice long stretch over the beginning of this summer before we get to the World Championship. So, should be a fun, nice coast of an episode today, Sierra.
I mean, you say that, but we also have all of NAIC to dive into. I feel like the next couple of weeks, the next 6 weeks? Crazy to think that Worlds is so far away and that we're going to have so many weeks with no events. Whatever. That's a different tangent. That's for a different time. But it's crazy to think that, the season minus Worlds is already over. I remember drowning in lanternflies at Pittsburgh like it was yesterday. What the heck?
I totally forgot about that at Pittsburgh. Yeah. It was like the plague. It was crazy.
It was dreadful. And I have a thing about killing bugs. I don't like killing bugs, but then lanternflies are invasive, but they also surpass my threshold of how big a bug can be before I cannot kill it, because if I have to see the guts or anything go anywhere, I can't do it. So that was truly a weekend of all time. But yeah, we go for Pittsburgh. NAIC is done. I don't know, it's always bittersweet thinking about that.
It's a weird feeling because for 90% of the year, Pokemon competitive events, it's such a constant, right? It's always, okay, well, Pittsburgh's over, then we're looking to the next, then we're looking to Sacramento, then we're looking to Toronto, then we're looking to LAIC, then we're looking to San Antonio, right? It's always just the next thing is always coming up in a couple of weeks after it. But every summer this happens. Now, yes, this is a very much elongated compared to most of our summers in Pokemon, but specifically for the VG players, we don't have anything to do. At least the TCG players, excuse me, I think their League Cups or something starts up in July for TCG players. So they're able to continue to play competitively and only have a month off, and they can start their grind for the 2025 World Championships, starting in July. But for us VGC people, we literally, I guess you go pick up another hobby, binge watch some TV shows or something for the next 2 months, because it is always a weird feeling.
Last night, somebody, a VG's player was teaching another VG player how to play TCG, so, I guess that's what you can do in the off month.
Yeah, right? Jake is also learning. Jake's been tweeting about learning TCG, so I guess that's
clockwork every time.
Just play it 2 months out of the year. But I do think it is good, honestly. Not that it makes you more well-rounded or a better Pokemon fan, air quotes or whatever, but if you do learn how to play the other competitive games, Ceruledge just came out in Pokemon Unite, right? Learn how to play Ceruledge or learn how to play Pokemon Unite, learn how to play Pokemon Go, learn how to play TCG. When I played in the Pokemon Go regional, when we didn't have any VGC events until Scarlet and Violet came out, that was a fun little side tangent where I was still getting to enjoy Pokemon just in a different way,
100%. I mean, even when, not last season, but the season before, when we had the really long break, you're saying, there's...
It was 6 months.
This one is elongated break. That was, the worst one of all times. But, even got to go to an event for TCG, which was definitely really, really nice. But we'll, I'm sure, be able to talk a lot about the upcoming season in coming weeks, because we unfortunately don't really have too much information about it right now, except for next time's New Orleans, which is where we just had our NAIC. So I'm not gonna lie, as much as I'm really sad to not have been able to go, this last kind of stretch of events was I don't know. It's been a little difficult. So I have like a bunch of FOMO, but like also staying home for the weekend was kind of nice.
I understand I understand your position because I am also I've massively missed out on the FOMO of New Orleans. Like, as I've mentioned on the podcast before, I've been the person championing for almost a decade now that New Orleans should be a Pokemon location, either for Worlds or for a regional. And here we learned that it was for an IC. So like, I felt like it was I manifested this into the world, even though obviously it had nothing to do with me. But I have very strongly felt and fought with people over the years that New Orleans is a perfect destination, vacation destination, whatever, for Pokemon. So I felt FOMO in not being able to physically go there. So I'm hoping next year, since we're going to be in the same spot, maybe I'll be more fortunate and get the chance to actually visit the place that, I kind of propped up as the place for Pokemon to go to.
I mean, at this point, just gotta like save the money, and even if you like, don't let it be in fate's hands whether you get picked or not. Make sure like you can just go and be able to chill or whatnot, because I definitely do think that as much as like super grateful to be like going to these events and whatnot, being picked up as broadcast, like that is. Do not get me wrong, I will pick that every single time. Being able to go as not broadcast and just kind of chill and hang out with everyone's also just a really, really fun experience. Like, I definitely just not having to worry about being up super, super early the next day to be sitting in like the makeup chair and have people like fuss over your face before you go live on camera. It's kind of nice. So I think definitely, regardless of how the chips fall of whether I'm casting or not at New Orleans next year, like I'm gonna be there. I'm not missing out.
Yeah, I saw some great photos of the nightlife in New Orleans, which is New Orleans is very well known for their nightlife, right? And so like all the VG players were like, it was some really funny photos that were getting posted at 2, 3, 4 in the morning at in the streets in in New Orleans. So I'd love to be a part of that. But I thought like the craziest thing, Sierra, was I was seeing tweets that like you picked up your badge and everything at the airport.
Yes,
that's crazy. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
It's so funny because, like, hearing it is, like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. It's just like, yo, okay, it's just a badge picked up at the airport. But it actually is such a good decision. I don't know when they came up with that, who decided that. I hope they implement that. Always for an IC. Like, an IC, no ifs, ands, or buts. But even, like, for these regionals, like, we're getting so many people attending now. Not everybody can get in on the Friday at a decent hour. And sometimes, like, the venues aren't really open too late for everyone to pick up their badges then, which then creates an absolute cluster on Saturday as everyone's trying to get there. So I would love to see for regionals and locations that can have that sort of thing at the airport, do 100% implement it. I mean, I would use that, like, every single time if I'm not actually casting the event. That just seems wicked.
Well, it's just like it adds on to the atmosphere of the significance of the event, right? It felt like the city of New Orleans was embracing Pokemon, and like you immediately touching down in New Orleans, you get off your airplane and you're already inundated with Pokemon before you even leave the airport. Like, it felt like the World Championships the last 2 years, where in London and in Yokohama, the city, the area we were in really was fully celebrating Pokemon with, pictures and, things to interact with and activities and stuff that, like, being able to it is such a simple thing, as you mentioned, but being able to pick up your badge at the airport, but it makes it feel like New Orleans is embracing Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like, yes, and obviously at all the Pride stuff and the happy, people that were able to do it, go in the parade, but then also go to the venue. Like, so you're able to cover both. Like, it felt like New Orleans and Pokemon, the community, like, really came together in unison this weekend. It was really cool.
Adds more to like the ICs being epic type feel of it all, which the ICs have just gotten like bigger and better over the years. So that has been super, super nice. But talk a little bit about the IC, because it looked like it was an amazing time. I mean, for the last few years, it has been in Columbus, and they hit New Orleans, and even just starting with the opening ceremonies, like they hit the culture hard. Like, they had the marching band going out. Like, that was that looked so cool. I couldn't imagine like being there in person to hear that. Oh my god, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, at first I was confused because they did have like the one person per game kind of pre-show thing that we do at Worlds, which we haven't always done at ICs. It was like Juancho, I think Phoebe, I forget who was our VG rep, and then a go or no, maybe it wasn't Phoebe. I forget who it was, but it was one person per thing, and Juancho was leading, and they talked for like 25 minutes, and it went till like I think like 9:10 or 10:10 because they're an hour behind. Excuse me. And I was like, man, what is going on? They're just like kind of stalling here. And then you just see like 100 people dressed up in like, fun, fancy New Orleans flair. And like the guy that was like dancing on the stilts with the gold suit jacket. And like, he kind of looked like, Spraggles, the Unite caster. Everyone was like kind of doing that at the, comparing the two of them. And they were like having the time of their life. And I was like, all right, that was worth the 10-minute delay. Sometimes we have delays in the Pokemon stream that are not worth it, but that New Orleans introduction was absolutely worth it.
It was really cool. I think like my one criticism, and like that's obviously hard to tell because like I wasn't there, but it didn't seem like they gave them a lot of space to be going through, like with where the tables were and like that little narrow corridor. Like it seemed very cramped. So it seems like it was going to be like a super like kind of epic thing, and it sounded really, really cool, and I love the concept idea. But then actually kind of seeing it and that there is no space whatsoever, everyone's just sort of crammed in. It didn't quite give like the same feeling as when they had the drums at Worlds. So obviously it's different because one's an IC, one's a World Championship, but it was like, it's kind of a different vibe based off of that. But I wasn't there to be able to like tell in person how that was.
Yeah, I would imagine, I'd imagine the in-person experience would be, cooler, and maybe they didn't want to block off a whole bunch of spots because obviously we already had like 5,000 people there to begin with if you combine all the players and spectators and everything. So it was just like a neat little introduction, and overall I think the whole weekend was good. There was a lot of great games. I know you were co-streaming it, so it's always funny when you're co-streaming because I'm like, oh, it's 10 a.m. like the region. So like, let me see if how Sierra's stream is doing. And then there's like a tweet that goes out at 2:30 in the afternoon, like, hey, catching up with round 1 of my co-stream.
Yo, like, I always get, this is the rant here, all right? Okay. I always get annoyed when in like Twitch chat or on Twitter, YouTube comments, people like complain about the amount of vamp and the amount of fill time between rounds, because people do it in like a really annoying way that's like, oh, the casters just like to yap or blah blah blah, and like, or like blaming us for something that's out of our control. And that always drives me absolutely bonkers, because you really think that we enjoy this vamp time? Like, we don't. Like, we want to watch more games too. We want to get right into the match. That's not our choice. Oh my gosh, like, I still don't like condone all the complaining about it. Don't get me wrong. Like, people should have a little understanding, but oh my god, was it painful to sit there for hours through the vamp. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, it's nobody's fault. It's how Swiss runs. I have no blame for anyone. But the first day 1, I ended up catching up to the live broadcast. I went live hours later. I ended up catching up at around round 6. And I thought I was going to perish. I was just sitting here in my chair, like, falling asleep. And I'm just like, I actually thought I was going to end stream. I was like, guys, I don't think I can do it. Like, I genuinely do not think I could sit here to listen to Vamp for, like, ever. And just then have the match and then go on to Vamp forever. And there ended up being a match, I think it was, like, day 2, maybe, that, like, ended up only being, like, 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my god, guys, I'm going to die. Like, I can't do it. But, yeah, like, the co-stream's fun. Other than that, I definitely, if I'm going to be doing more co-streams, watch parties in the future, like, figure out better use of, like, my own time. I thought I was originally going to play matches, but then when you're watching matches, I don't want to be playing VG matches in between, and that isn't really what we're there for. Like, I need to figure out on a co-streaming aspect what to do, and
maybe it's Stardew Valley breaks between rounds.
Yeah, with my, like, the Pokemon Watch Party that Pokemon has drops enabled for the channel and is like actually like invested.
I'm trying to think of things that'll keep you,
I don't think I'm allowed
occupied.
to. Yeah, it would keep me on. Like, don't get me wrong, it would keep me occupied. I don't think I'm allowed to do that though. Like,
I mean,
I think they maybe might take concern. Yeah, I don't know. And it's also like just made me kind of like reflect and think a little bit more like on a broadcast talent level of trying to think of like I think we do as best of a job as we can given the circumstances because like it is not a easy position for us to be in, like don't get me wrong, but it's also like I've been thinking more about how when I'm working an event how to try and better fill that space so that others don't have that issue. I don't know, there's a lot to think about there.
Well, it's also tough too with like your perspective room. I do actually, it is funny that like you don't start on time, but it is a pretty smart or efficient thing that on your end, because you hope that, all right, if I start my stream of round 1 when round 5 is currently happening, then hopefully by the time things even out and I've watched the first 7 rounds, then we're all together on round 8. So it is a smart, efficient way of doing your coaching because you get through all the downtime and the interviews and just, the championship history videos and stuff. But excuse me, because we can't account for how much downtime there is between rounds. Sometimes there's only 5 minutes and other times there's 45 minutes. So it's hard on your end as a co-streamer to try to properly time it out,
Yeah, and that's the same issue that we run into on broadcast too, because at the same time, like you can pick this match and it's between 2 great players and that's all fine and dandy, and sometimes it just so happened to be that somebody is about to get absolutely 4-0'd in the fastest fashion and you wouldn't have expected it, right? So there's just so much out of control. I think I don't have the perfect solution. I've never seen anyone have the perfect solution because it's realistically every solution's kind of just like bleh, like okay, stream more matches. Oh, okay, so we're just going to replicate like for their broadcast setups. Also for casting, hopping into a match mid-match is like dreadful because you don't know the context of what's happening. Like all of a sudden, even was talking about Ugarte's 2023 Portland win, and we were talking about like one of the matchups, and somebody had mentioned that the casters in game 2 got really hyped over a play that ended up being read by the player, that it seemed like the casters were just kind of overhyping something, but they were missing the context that game 1 they had gone for completely different plays and it ended up being kind of like a read. So the hype was because game 1 a totally different circumstance happened and it led to like this downfall, and then game 2 was set on a completely different tone because they adjusted how the read went. So you'd miss that as well. If you're all of a sudden hopping into something mid-match, you're missing so much further context that then could make somebody look really silly or whatnot, because you simply don't know. So I don't know. You can go down this rabbit hole for hours, honestly. Like this is actually like probably like the worst rabbit hole to go down because there's really no perfect solution as of right now and what's actually possible.
Yeah, I think it's just it is just an aspect of co-streaming, right? And I'm sure like League of Legends co-streamers or like Street Fighter co-streamers, like when they're streaming large events, they probably go through the same issues. I don't know if it's as pronounced as we have in Pokemon, because I don't know. Like I know at least in League the breaks aren't that long and the breaks are consistent amounts of time. It is like between games is always X amount of minutes, so at least you can prepare for that as a co-streamer, right? So I think you did the best you could,
so that's exactly it. Like the other games, since they're not Swiss, you can rolling start schedule. So one ends sooner, you go into the next. Like that's completely fine. Pokemon, until everything about it changes, that's not going to be an option. And I don't see with the state of the game how everything's going to change.
I was going to ask, how did it feel having the Play Pokemon Twitter account retweet your going live posts? Because I saw that and I was like, that's cool.
Oh, I didn't even see it.
Oh my God, see, you're just so popular. You don't even notice all the people that retweet your stuff.
I didn't even know. My bad. No, I didn't look. I genuinely didn't see it. I
okay,
did
well,
see.
now that I've told you that, how does that feel?
See, I think it's cool. I think it's I think it's good for the viewership of the broadcast for them to invest more in co-streams. I obviously there was not too many co-streams happening this time around, but they had enabled drops for my channel. They had like touched in if I needed anything, had everything like kind of set up okay. And I think that's absolutely great. Like, I would like to see in the future, you know, how for the Pokemon partners and the notable trainers for Worlds, they've posted them on the website. I'd maybe like to see like a graphic before the co-streams are live, to advertise the co-streamers a smidge more, and kind of invest into that. But I think where they're headed in that direction right now is really, really beneficial, especially too if you're getting people that are outside Pokemon but are still like big creators that like Pokemon to get invested. Like, that does wonders for like the viewership of the game. I think it's like there's so much more to unlock there. Like, I'm super, super glad that they've been like taking that step.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, just from the announcement they've shown, of like content creators that are coming to Worlds that aren't necessarily Pokemon content creators, but they are like massive online creators. Like, that's how you can grow the audience, right? If you take this, you know, big TFT streamer or this big, you know, other game Valorant streamer, let's say, and they're now getting into Pokemon and and introducing their audience to VGC or TCG or something. Like, I think that's like a good avenue for Pokemon to continue to go down.
Which I think, as we kind of pivot this over into talking a little bit more about NAIC, talking about people that are not necessarily in Pokemon, that are kind of getting featured, can showcase the game a little bit. I'm sure that you saw that Jamal Williams interview that they did on day one. When I saw that happening, first off, if anybody has not seen that interview, go watch it. It is absolutely hilarious. But did you end up seeing that? Like, right, you had to have, right?
Well, not only, Sierra, did I see the interview, but the clip that was the social clip, or the TikTok, you know, vertical clip, the 13-second silly clip of Jamal Williams that was sent around all over social media. I edited that clip. So for anyone who didn't know, and which would be everybody, because I never said anything, I was helping the social content team at EUSE and NAIC it's like kind of like an SME, but for social a little bit. Like, I provided certain Pokemon for those graphics of, like, you know, Pokemon showcase, like the Pelipper and, you know, Miraidon and Terapagos, and I would give them reasons why those Pokemon are viable. And then every round, my job was to clip out a significant moment from the match, either, you know, the game-winning play or the last play that, you know, with a good call from the commentary, and then I would provide copy for the post. And for anyone who doesn't know, copy, because we explain these things for our listeners. Copy is the text associated with a post. I don't know why it's called copy, but that's just what it's like. A news, excuse me, it's just a term that's existed forever. So I would, if you saw any of the Play Pokemon tweets this weekend with like 30-second highlights and, you know, a silly little pun in the tweet or anything, like the one about the Tyranitar, Terragos Tyranitar in the haunted house, the haunted mansion capital of America. Like, that was me. Like,
of course, the one that was in depth about the T-Tar was you. Like, I'm not like, that is like the most unsurprising thing I think.
Oh my God, it was so it literally lined up perfectly. And then I made then I went in Photoshop and edited the T-Tar, the famous T-Tar meme, and I got a lot of good response to that. But yeah, so basically, I was helping them all weekend, making funny posts, making funny memes, or making, you know, things. Like, I helped, they made a social post on YouTube that Wolf responded to, where I had to write the copy for that one. And it was like, Wolf and his trusty Incineroar get the victory, blah, blah, blah. And then Wolf tweeted, it was like, Wolf and his what? Yeah, he was like upset. But yes, back to Jamal Williams. So I was literally, I'm a big NFL fan. I know Jamal Williams. Everybody loves him because he loves anime, and he's very zany. He's out there. He's like a really fun personality. So when I saw he was going to be in New Orleans, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then they do the interview, and it was so funny. And I was just, at my computer, and I was like, let me see if I can do something here. And I, made like kind of a TikTok 13-second clip of just like the really silliest, no context parts of the Jamal Williams interview. And then like Pokemon tweeted. I didn't even make it for Pokemon to tweet out. I made it for the social team, like, because we were all chilling and talking. I was like, here's a funny, silly thing that I just thought would be funny and would just get a laugh out of it, for them as we're all sitting between rounds. And they're like, oh, wait, this is actually really good. Maybe we could post this. And I was like, oh okay. And then so Pokemon tweets it out. Barstool Sports reposts it. The New Orleans Saints also reposted on on TikTok, and that had like 40,000 likes or something. So
damn.
Like Jamal Williams retweeted it, and like it was kind of became like a really big aspect of the social story for NAIC. And I just made that video just because I thought it was funny, and I was just trying to get a laugh out of the other social people, and it actually turned into like a good moment online.
Like the thing. That's actually, I didn't like that context. That's a lot of fun. That whole interview too was a lot of fun. Like talking about investing in like personalities that aren't like necessarily Pokemon based. Like,
yeah,
I don't think there's a single person that saw that interview that didn't absolutely love it. It was chaotic. It was all over the place. And like, I loved that energy. And I thought it was really cool too, because obviously like there's a lot of people that don't play competitive Pokemon that love Pokemon. So I'm very like back and forth on like how much showcasing of like both sides of things at a competition there is, but being able to see like a big personality like that come out and just like totally being, I don't know, that was so cool. That was awesome.
I did feel bad for Anna a little bit, because he was just like kind of throwing her for a loop in every answer. Like he was just off the wall. He was mentioning One Piece, he was mentioning Naruto, he was mentioning like all these non-Pokemon products, and like Anna can't sit there in the middle of the interview and be like, hey, just mention Pokemon. That's the only thing. Like, she can't do that, right? So we just have to let him go off on his tangents about like wanting to be an evil villain from like some other anime.
Just Joker laugh and all that.
He was just so unhinged. It was awesome.
It's like a back and forth, because I get to do quite a bit of hosting and other things. It's like there's like the part where it's like, well, Pokemon's like can be like kind of like a bit more strict, because brand stuff, and obviously too like no IP wants to step on another IP on like live broadcast. That's not just a Pokemon thing, that's like everything. I think what's at least really, really good on her end, it was a pre-recorded interview. So It was, if there was anything that like that was edited, that was somebody approved that. So it wasn't like she was left out to dry and was all of a sudden like, oh shoot, what do I say? Like what type thing? And so that was at least like, I would have been like a big sigh of relief, like knowing it wasn't like, if I'm interviewing somebody and they're talking about Naruto and One Piece, I'm just like, you know what? If Pokemon doesn't like it, they can cut it. Like I'm just gonna chill. So at least that was good for her.
I do think that like everybody is giving the social team their praises for NAIC, because they had like the Monkey Dory memes posting, like all according to Monkey Dory or whatever, and then the memes if Incineroar wins versus memes, the folder for memes if Incineroar loses, and then the stuff with Wolf and Incineroar. Like the social team was just like the live Wo Chien reaction tweet as well. They retweeted Justin Tang. They replied to Michael Zhang's tweet of him in the bathroom. Like
that one was unhinged AF. Oh my god,
it was so good.
I actually wanted to retweet that, but I couldn't crop it to like an acceptable size, so I just like gave up on it. But that was like one of the best interactions. I absolutely love that. For people who don't know the context, like Michael Zhang posted a picture basically just saying his record, and you could very clearly see like toilet seat covers behind him. Like he's very obviously like sitting like in the bathroom taking this picture. And then Pokemon just replies like, oh, where'd you take this photo? And he just goes, don't worry about it. that was it. That was the entire interaction. I was howling. I could not believe that Pokemon replied that. I couldn't believe like the entire interaction. Like that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was just, the team they love having fun, So like it was really, it was a really fun project to be a part of. So it was still nice to actually be involved and, you know, having my having some fun with the event, even if I was at home. Like the Jamal Williams stuff was a happy little accident, but like I literally had friends sending me that clip on on TikTok and on Instagram. And I was like, I made that clip, you know? And they're like, oh, that's so cool. So it was nice. It was a nice, fun weekend, even though we were both watching from home.
100%. But of course, that's like, there's a lot of fun stuff. There was also a competition. Let's talk a smidge more about that. Honestly, we just rinsed and repeated the EUI. Like, we took the EUIC script. We said, let's take an accomplished EU player and put them against a newer NA player. And then they're like, oh, shoot, we can't quite copy the script word for word here. Where do we switch it up? Oh, okay, we'll have the NA player win in the finals. But what a match. Like, Reg G has just been absolutely chaotic so far. I'm just mind blown at every single time we have development here. And this finals was top notch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think overall, even just if you expanded upon top 8 as well, I think it was also a really fun top 8. Excuse me, with a lot of back and forth, and like there were some rounds that I really did think that the other outcome was going to happen. So like to see the back and forth that we had for our top 8 players was really great. But I mean, all three games of the finals were bangers, and then you have like the Pelipper swap heard around the world in game 3 that like just Aurelian had absolutely no plans for, and everybody in the crowd understood that it was GG the moment Pelipper hit the field. Like, it was, the whole crowd understood, like, this is a massive moment right now.
Yeah, that was like that. I never thought I would see like a pop off like that for a Pelipper, but that's exactly it. The second that the Pelipper hit the field, everybody just kind of knew exactly what was going to happen. The pop off
was just for the Pokemon. Like, it wasn't like it got a hurricane crit or something like that.
It didn't do anything yet. It just showed up.
The commotion in the crowd was just because a Pokemon was on the screen. It was awesome.
It was so good. So the finals, for anyone who didn't watch, was Patrick Connors, Florida man, going up against Aurelian Sula. Very, very strong EU player. Like, literally, like, their career right now is just like, not if, but when they're going to be getting a major title. Because Aurelian's gotten second place at a lot of really big tours, has always been so consistent. Is such a good player. It's actually unreal. So, like, this matchup in the grand finals was, it was really, really cool. Like, it was a great way to be ending off our season before Worlds, obviously, but I'm not counting that yet.
Yeah, I think there's probably been a number of European events and then now NAIC that, like, Aurelian felt like the clear-cut favorite to win the event, right? I think Aurelian went 14-0 in a European regional this year and then lost in Top Cut. So this is not unfamiliar territory for Aurelian to just like be the clear-cut best, quote-unquote, best player in the field and then end up losing in, you know, finals or top 4 or top 8 or anything like that. This time it ended up being the finals, but just like, oh my God, the emotion, the story. We had the storylines of like first time ever in New Orleans, and then here you have this Florida man wins VGC that never had better than a top 64 in Orlando, right? And he's just a local guy, and then we find out on camera that his family is secretly there. They drove 13 hours overnight and didn't tell him. And then, like, it still would have been cute even if he lost, right? But, like, the fact that he wins and then sees his family on stage that he had no idea, like, literal chills down. It was, oh my God, it was amazing.
I cried. And, like, to see the family's reaction, I feel like I'm going to cry right now, like, talking about it. But, like, seeing, like, the family's reaction, because obviously, like, the Pokemon Pro knows how to do their job. They had a camera person on his family the entire time. They were not letting them out of his sight. But, like, my gosh, like, every single time, like, something happened in between matches. So, like, Patrick Connors won game 1, and then it was, like, his family, they have the camera, and they're like, oh my god, and then Aurelian wins game 2, and then he goes back to Connor's family as they're like, oh my god, and sad freaking out, and just the whole back and forth was amazing. And his dad hopping up on the stage at the very end as well.
Yep.
That was so wholesome, because Patrick didn't know at that point his family was there, right? So to then have his dad hop on the stage and celebrate the win with him, it was amazing. That was I know we always talk about needing more pop-offs in Pokemon and stuff, and moments like that, and that wasn't so much as a big pop-off as just a genuinely really wholesome moment that we all got to see, was something that is, I'm sure in the past, been kind of you shouldn't do that, hopping on the stage.
Yeah, I think the production team did a great job all around this weekend with the pregame interviews, right? Where we talked to, I think it was Aurelian's mom versus obviously Patrick's dad. But in TCG, Juancho did interviews with either the kids' brother, their older brother, or their dad. The senior interview in VGC with the what was it? It was a dad and a grandpa were the two people that got interviewed.
Yeah,
of the players.
Was for the senior VGC final. That was also really wholesome, because
they shook hands right after the camera caught the two parents shaking hands and stuff. That was really cool.
That was so good. Even in the interview, they were so gracious towards each other, and yeah, we just met, and the senior scene it's awesome, and which other way this is gonna be awesome, and then they actually sat, them sitting and watching the match together, I thought was really, really wholesome, because, I mean, if they have other people to be with, or they just don't want to sit together, they don't have to, right? But the fact that they sat there and watched their family compete in the finals, I thought that was mad wholesome.
I also thought it was absolutely hilarious when the poor grandpa said Pokemans, and the whole arena erupted, and I felt bad because everyone was laughing, but if anyone listening, if anyone has any grandparent aged relatives, right? They kind of all they all say Chipotle instead of Chipotle. They just can't say Chipotle correctly, the grandparents. And they all say Pokemans instead of Pokemon. So it was just really fitting that he was living up to his grandparent, duties to not pronounce it correctly.
So wholesome. I think during the interview at one point too, I think he referred to his grandkid as his other grandkid's name. Which
really?
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I heard that, because I think I heard a correction, which I don't know if this is an experience that a lot of people have, but my parents, grandparents, uncles, they mix me and my siblings up all the time. That isn't even I feel as bad. That's just a really funny, relatable moment.
Yeah, at that point. Which one are you? Which one are you?
Yeah, they'll get through all of my siblings before they get to me, and it's just bro,
yeah.
Really? But I thought that was pretty funny as well.
And it was nice that Joshua won the finals this time in NA, because if you remember when we were in Brazil, he made the finals and lost in LAIC. So nice little redemption to end the season with a dub before Worlds.
100%. 100%. And then talking about the junior division, that isn't even redemption. That is just an absolute slaughter
domination
of a season. Oh my gosh. I have to, first off, it was so funny seeing the juniors side by side, because there is a very clear age difference, but there was a very clear height difference, and it was so funny. I was cracking up.
I think that kid he went to bed a junior one night and then had a growth spurt and just grew 8 inches one day.
Kevin Hahn,
he's still technically a junior in age or whatever, but he had already had his growth spurt, because it was really funny seeing the height difference between the two juniors. Because you're used to seeing juniors where they're wearing a Play Pokemon shirt and it's so big on them that it's their entire body is covered by the t-shirt, but then Kevin looked like a whole real person, not a little little child. So people making memes. I know Jody posted the bench warmers I am 12 birth certificate. It's got a $20 bill in it. So that was really funny too. And he down it, what they say, was 6 regional wins or something.
6 or 7 regional wins this in all time. a bunch of them this season. I've gotten to interview him at past events. Like, kid's cracked. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, and like seeing the gameplay too and like adjustments, like, yeah, no, like this kid's gonna be dominating in seniors. And like if he keeps playing until masters, like, yeah, no, that'll be an insane list of accomplishments that he has for his entire history.
Yeah, and that was a pretty dominant win also, too. Like, of the three VG matches on Sunday, I think the juniors was the most dominant, you know?
Oh, 100%. Like, the juniors are always like such interesting matches to watch because like there is some super super cracked kids at the game, like, don't get me wrong, but then sometimes if like they get like through coaching and they're following a game plan because maybe they don't know the matchup as well, and that game plan then gets disrupted, like sometimes things kind of fall apart a little bit. Like, you really just don't know like what type of preparation or like game plan the junior has coming into it, so I think that can kind of lead to some one-sided matches sometimes, but Kevin played super super well, so
Yeah, and like, speaking of one side, with Avery last year with do it again. And,
still my
and
favorite moment.
Avery, oh my god, that interview was so adorable.
That is still, I think, my favorite interview of all time. That is just like that interview, like that entire match, because like that one is still special. Like, I got to sit in the crowd and listen like to that and be there for that. Like, amazing, absolutely phenomenal. I will never get over that. Do it again. Do it again.
Like, literally, we're gonna see Avery when he's 25 years old, and we'll be like, do it again.
Yeah, honestly, but yeah, no, it was a really good championship Sunday, but yeah, NAIC, like, this top 8 just in general, like, no matter which way this shook up, it was about to be just like a wicked time. Like, there is representation from all over the world in this top 8. I mean, Henry Rich coming in 8th spot from Australia. You have Shilang Tang. Burns, you're captain almost, you know.
Hey, you're the closest we've ever been to a correct prediction.
I am. That was also an insane one because that was Burns going up against Aurelian in top 8. Like, oof, I was torn because I was like, man, and I'm like, I'll be happy either way. Don't get me wrong, because it's like I like both of these players, but I'm like, oh, but Aurelian's looking for that title. But I predicted Burns to win the entire thing. Like, there's turmoil.
Yeah, honestly, like, there were a lot of different directions that this top 8 could have went with a lot of different, you know, fun storylines. Like, even Antonio won a regional, right? So he's a big name. Justin Burns, obviously, three IC top 8s to his name now. Henry coming from Australia with Overquill out of nowhere, which is like freaking crazy that Overquill was on stream twice in NAIC. But then, like, I think also would have been huge if Shiliang Tang won as a, you know, Chinese and NA player, but he also had Wo Chien. That would have been a huge story. If Edu had won, he would have won his second international championship and would have been the few. Because Edu won Oceania, if he ends up winning NAIC, he could be one of the few people that could ever accomplish the Grand Slam, like Tord has in TCG. Since we don't have Oceania anymore, there's only a finite amount of people that can do it. Him and Marco and a couple others. But then obviously Aurelian would have been the biggest win in their career. But then USA, it didn't matter when it came down to it. Sierra, Florida man, backed his country and took home the title and stopped the EU triple threat.
I have to say too, like, the way Patrick Connors played on stream. So, like, because we got to see him a little earlier on, and my biggest thing when I'm watching players is to see kind of like how they react. Like, I think like going back and forth on menus is fine, because there is some really good players that do that, and just like go back and forth between their options. There's also a way of slowly picking that kind of makes it seem like a player doesn't know what they're doing necessarily, or that they seem like a little uncomfortable. Patrick Connors didn't hesitate. He literally like gets there, looks at the board tape, inputs the moves. Like, there was just such a level of confidence and assertiveness that was just like, oh, okay, this guy's good at the game. He knows what he's doing. He understands this. Like, this is, like, I think that was the biggest thing for me. Because, like, when you have someone that's a little bit newer, like, you don't know what's going to be showing up in finals. But, like, seeing him play on stream was like, no, actually, like, he is legit. Like, he's about to pop off. And sure enough, like, that was crazy story to be following.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all learned from the other Florida local players that were tweeting on Saturday night and on Sunday as well, that like they faced Patrick at all their locals, and his accomplishments were only Orlando because he hasn't traveled as much, right? Like his dad said he's studying to be a lawyer or whatever. I forget what it was. So obviously he's a busy person that only goes to locals and the local regional. So it's not, or it's understandable if people aren't familiar with Patrick. Like I wasn't familiar with Patrick before he made it.
Wasn't familiar with his game.
Yeah, I was not familiar with his game before top 8, but like there have been other, how do you say, like Cinderella runs, right, of players that we haven't seen before make it on stream and maybe they're 6-0 with a crazy team and it's the first time, and then they get stomped, and then or they make it into Top Cut for the first time, we haven't seen them, excuse me, and then they kind of make they just play it too safe. They don't make the right predictions. They're not living up to the expectation of being one of the 8 best players at the event. But like Patrick's confidence, you could see in his demeanor on stage, in his decision making as well. Like you mentioned, not clicking a million buttons and going back and forth, was like very confidently making those decisions. And those decisions were also predictions, right? It wasn't like he wasn't just confidently making the correct or like just the simple play. Like sometimes he was predicting the switch in and then changing his attack based off of who he thought was going to be switching in and stuff. So like I think you got to give all the credit to Patrick for how he played this weekend.
Yeah, like it was so well deserved. So that'll be interesting because like obviously this isn't first event, but to be able to, after like top 64 winning an international in this day and age with how many people, like it's like it reminds me of the whole like Justin Tang like kind of story arc where it's like player that kind of comes out of nowhere and like people that like know him and know like what he's made of is like know that he's good, but for everyone else this is kind of like an eye-opening of like, hey, wait a second, and like Patrick's now put himself in that boat and that same thing.
What I thought was the most interesting thing in that set, like besides Pelipper, obviously, and the checkmate in game 3, was game 1, Patrick went for the exact same play that Edu went for in game 3 in top 4 the prior night that lost the game for Edu. Edu went for the Thunderclap Grassy Glide into Fluttermane, and Aurelian's Fluttermane lived on like 5 HP. And then I forget how he punished Edu, but basically that's how like the game 3, like from that missed KO, Aurelian just punished him and won the set. And game 1, turn 1 of game 1 in the finals, Patrick went for Thunderclap Grassy Glide into the Fluttermane and it doesn't KO. And I was like, bro, this is deja vu. He just made the same play that Edu did and it didn't work out, blah, blah. But Patrick won that game. And I think that's where you got to give credit to him, is like, he went for the quote unquote, like win big, like, kind of just, if he gets to the KO there, he wins the game on turn 1. And it didn't go out in his favor. And then he still maintained the composure and made the correct decisions to come back after a play that didn't work in his favor, so that was the biggest play to me, that he went for a play that didn't work out and then still won game 1 somehow.
Yeah, like Patrick's legit. Like that's all I'm gonna like. I think that sums it up well. Like good player, not a fraudulent win. Like this was.
And Ice Rider did it. He finally, Cowrex Ice Rider, winning the big event.
Finally broke through when it matters most, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was like just the restricteds. Like there's like looking just in this top 8 in general. There is a chance. I mean, all things considered, and we got to see quite a few different restricteds kind of just in this top 8. Like I think we're in a pretty like everything kind of viable sort of point.
Looks like we have we have 5 different restricteds in top 8. The only repeats are Terapagos had 2, Ice Rider had 2, and Kyogre had 2, which like Kinda. I don't know. I don't want to pat myself on the back because I said my hot take during the preview show was that Kyogre was going to win, and like I'm gonna be completely honest, I didn't believe it. I just wanted to give, like, when we were in LA, they're like, hey, everybody has to give their work with Zach, work with the production team, and like give your hot take. And I was like, what would be cool if it happened? And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if Kyogre like won out of nowhere? And then I got kind of close here. I got two of them in top 8. That's pretty good for a hot take that you don't even believe in.
I'll just say the take to say the take. You know, that's do it for the content. Do it for the content. These teams, because like we got to talk about these Kyogre teams. Because looking at the other teams, it's like, okay, we got Cali Shadow. Okay, this one has a Smeargle. Okay, that's kind of cute. That's kind of cheeky. Okay, you know, Cali Ice with the Ditto. We've seen this before, but Ditto's still kind of fun, blah, blah, blah. These Kyogre teams, though, like, these Kyogre players are, like, absolutely cooking. So, talking about Henry's teams first, I desperately wish we got to see different matches play out. Because, I mean, obviously, this team worked in some sort of capacity because Henry, you know, went 12-3 to make his way into Swiss. He won a bunch of matches. But we got to see him round 1 of day 2, and then in the top 8 match against Edu. And both times, like, it didn't look good. But you know that at some point it did because he made it into top cut. He made this run. Like, I have so many questions and none got answered.
Yeah, I really wish somebody was recording, like, if Henry ended up being on, like, the side TVs at some point to see those matches, because, as you mentioned, Henry did win 12 sets with this Overquill team, even though he was on stream twice, and it almost looked like it kind of looked unfathomable in those 2 matchups that Henry was in top 8 with how Overquill was performing in those sets, unfortunately for Henry. But like, that was another pat on the back. I did in the NAIC preview show, I did say Henry was my player to watch for Oceania. Not because of Overquill.
Pat on the back, that's just an obvious. Come on.
What do you mean obvious? For the other two, no, because you had Nicholas Khan, who's an IC champion, and then Megan Rattle, who top cut worlds twice. That's not an obvious answer.
It's just like a 1-in-3, like, not that there's only 3 good Australian players, but like for people that can actually like come out to the event, there's not many. Like, Australia's far away, there's not many that do make that travel, right? So
you heard it here. Sierra said Oceania is bad.
That is not what I said. But when you're looking at, like, okay, there's only a couple people that can go to an event because the travel is so far. We both worked OCIC before. That was very far. I'm not surprised there's only a couple people that make that trip, you know?
Listen, all I'm saying is Overquill did something for 12 rounds. It sure didn't do anything twice on stream. And I did like the Overquill's run at NAIC is over, you know, and the people were like replying to it, like, it's Joverquill, and like, you know, all these like sad posts, because it would have been cool if Overquill comes out of nowhere to win an event.
100%.
But like, the team is really cool. Probably one of the only Landers incarnates, right, in the field, and Henry's using Choice Scarf instead of the now decade plus synonymous combination of Life Orb Sheer Force. He was using Choice Scarf Sheer Force Landers. So
apparently that was a Japan Nats kind of development, was this Choice Scarf. Because I was kind of caught off guard by it too, because I didn't get to follow Japan Nats as much as I would have liked to. But apparently that was something that was kind of making waves there, that then we got to see a little bit more of it NAIC as people kind of adopted it.
But then the Volcarona, we never saw do anything on stream, so I'm sure it was better in other matchups. But start with the other Kyogre team, with Shiliang's team. The Tengang kind of cooked this weekend. I think it was Shiliang, Justin, and then I think Marcos ran the Wochien team too.
I think he ran a different one. I don't think it was the same Wochien. There was one more person, I believe, that played the Wochien team along with the Tangs, but I can't remember who off guard. But this team was something. Like, I'm sure you were the one that made it, but like the social clip of all of a sudden, like, the Kyogre just tanking the Raging Bolt T-Bolt.
Yes.
And then just gets healed back up to full by Pollen Puff from Wo Chien, and then Water Spouts. That was such a cool moment. That was like, this team, like, they were cooking.
Or as the social team put it, whoa, in all capital letters, WHOA, and then parentheses Chien. And I told, I was like, get ready for the live Wo Chien reaction replies. And then literally it was like 17 replies to that tweet that were all just live Wo Chien reaction. Like,
of course.
It was, but this team is so good because, like, I like how the Tang Yang operates, because it's like a well-rounded team, but it's also kind of simplistic at the same time. Like, the Kyogre is Assault Vest. I do think that's the best Assault, or I think Assault Vest is the best Kyogre set personally for me. It just helps you in the mirror because you have a better special defense. There's a lot of special attackers in the format as well. And it gives you that extra coverage where it feels like when you run a mystic warder or something else, you're kind of missing a move that you'd really like to have access to. And when you're scarfed, you can only click the one move, right? So even though you have 4 moves on a scarf set, you're not actually able to click all 4 of them. So I love the AV set, and they're like, okay, well, the whole team is built around Kyogre and, keeping it safe. So if we put Wo Chien on the team, well, we don't really have that many strong attackers except for Urshifu. So all you have to do is just not have Urshifu and Wo Chien on the field at the same time. Right? Incineroar doesn't even have Flare Blitz, so you don't care about your physical damage. And then the Iron Jugulus makes so much sense because I think other people would just put Tornadus in that slot for the Prankster Tailwind. But you already have another Prankster Pokemon in Grimmsnarl, and both Grimmsnarl and Iron Jugulus are dark types, so they're immune to Prankster Taunt, so you can't stop the support. Like, this is as much of a Protect the President comp as you can have in Reg G. The whole team is built around Kyogre as the main win condition, and then you have the secondary stall win condition of Wo Chien. Like, I think this team is really well constructed.
No, it really is. Like, this team is just a different level of cooking. It caught me off guard, and then the more I looked at it, the more it was like, oh, this is kind of sick. And I'm normally not a fan of AV Kyogre because, I mean, you're just kind of susceptible to getting hits, and then that kind of sucks. But since you have this healing potential on your team, then that's where it kind of just all clicked. Like, I absolutely love that. I can't believe that Wo Chien as well was in a position where it could have won NAIC. Like, Wo Chien's always
really
been kind of like that joke treasure of ruin. Oh, it was kind of looking pretty good. Like,
yeah, I was rooting for in the end in Xiliang's top 8 match where I think it was down to 3v1. Finally, when Wo Chien was the last Pokemon left, and then Rillaboom's grassy terrain ran out, and it was at that point I was like, all right, it's over. Like, there was a world where if you could get a couple more turns of grassy terrain and maybe make this a 2v1 situation, the Wo Chien might have been able to clean it up. But
Xiliang also just got unlucky in the set too. Like, it's tough because when you're running a team that has options to miss, at some point you're kind of gonna get unlucky during it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing. That's why there's the whole Riley Factura way of okay, everything accurate. Like, the high power or a high impact moves are inaccurate for a reason, and so you can't I always feel bad because it's you can't be too mad, but at the same time, there was definitely there's the Mist Ruination, I think there's Mist Leech Seeds, he waved and there was not a single turn to full paralysis except for the Pelipper after everything had gotten KO'd already, so it didn't even matter at that point. That was just kind of unfortunate.
I did feel good watching Xiliang play though because of the Kyogre Grimmsnarl strat was similar. It's obviously not the same as what we're building in the on the Lunala team, but our team is built around our special attacking restricted Pokemon that gets to stay healthy because you have Grimmsnarl with Light Screen and Reflect. So I was like, all right, we're on to something. Other people also think that Grimmsnarl is good right now,
I mean, it's the normal meta development where you start off the format and screen sucks and everything that isn't just hyper offense and fast sucks. And then people start building towards the slower to run the aggressive teams out of options, and then that's where Grimmsnarl and Screens and all that started to like pick up a little bit more again. So we're fully in the Screens and bulky era of things. And hey, I mean, proof's in the pudding on that one, right?
Oh, wait, Sarah, you know what team we actually have to talk about? It was not in the top 8. I was waiting for your response first.
I don't. Let me.
There was a buzz in the building with the Electabuzz team. Alex Underhill, Adi, and that crew using Vital Spirit, Eviolite, Follow Me, Faint, Taunt, Volt Switch, Electabuzz, and Alex Underhill got 12? NAIC with Electabuzz?
I couldn't believe it. I still don't believe it. I don't know, man. I don't know. They're cooking. They're cooking.
Because I love this team because it truly it flips the conventional team building strat of like 4 offense, 2 support, right? It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a general rule to help people when they're team building. It's like, okay, I have 4 Pokemon that can, win me the game with damage, and then 2 support Pokemon that can help those Pokemon stick around or whatever. This flips it on its head. It is Calyrex Ice Rider and Ursaluna Blood Moon, or Blood Moon Ursaluna, are the 2 offensive Pokemon, and then you have 4 supportive Pokemon helping you either with Choice Scarf coaching or Final Gambit from the Annihilate to help put things in range for Calyrex to pick up the Chilling Neigh boost, or Decorate on Smeargle to boost the special attack and attack by 2 stages for Blood Moon's Hyper Voices to do even more damage. Like, the Tub team really did just like flip the conventional team building on its head. Also, there's no Fire, Water, Grass core to be seen anywhere, which is very common in team building, right? So like this team truly cooked.
I still don't know my thoughts about the team, in all honesty. Like, maybe it's just like an inherent, I see Electabuzz and I just can't get on board, but
this is not a pick up and play team.
This is something you gotta know. This is a team that you gotta know. Like, there is no shot at anything other than that. But like, honestly, like, kudos to be rolling up to NAIC and being like, yep, it's Electabuzz, and then being able to have like the performance that they did. That's crazy talk.
Yeah, and it got on stream both with Adi and Alex Underhill. Like, that was awesome that it made it on Stream Choice. I think that's probably my favorite non-top 8 team. I'm trying to look at some of the other stuff. Oh, Michael Zhang went on stream. He brought the Latios. He added Galarian Moltres back onto the squad when he took it off for Chandelure in LA, if you remember a couple weeks ago.
Michael Zhang's also cooking. I still hate Galarian Moltres. I can't get on board with that. I was surprised out of all things to see the T-Tar come back onto the team.
Yeah, baby!
Oh my gosh. We are entering an era, and I actually think that this is like, okay, like, I think as the events get bigger and bigger, and obviously with, you never know what people are putting on teams, that having something that like you're kind of just comfortable with and know inside and out, I think is going to be like the next like biggest wave of things, because you can't prepare for everything. You got to make sure you're obviously not taking like losses in common matchups, but just having tools and like the capability to outplay with something that like, I think that's humongous. Like, I think that's going to be something that we're going to see some funky things for Worlds because of that.
Yeah, like if Michael is breaking these teams out for all of Reg G and then here at NAIC, like, what is he going to bring to Worlds? Like, what else is left in the tank? These teams are so out there, out of left field, but he makes it work. He did say in his interview that he's probably going to stick around building with Zamazenta because he thinks Zamazenta is really good. So I guess the other 5 slots are up for interpretation. Maybe some random Pokemon will be used in those other 5 slots, but like, I'm very excited to see what Michael comes up with.
Worlds will be nuts. It'll be something. Like, yeah, even just this event, I mean, Z got 9th place, bubbling out of top 8 with Talonflame. We saw Thornburg with Talonflame at LA with the Screamtail team. Very, very Zach. but now Talonflame making its way onto a non-Screamtail team.
Yeah.
And making its way other things. We got to see a Smeargle that had Transform on it. That from Eric Rios had that, though we never saw that play out in an interaction on stream. But you could transform into like your own Pokemon, including your Calm Mind boosting Pally Shadow. 18th place, there's Zordon. Emilio Forbes, 20th place. 11-4 Swiss rounds with Annihilate Screamtail. We're everywhere right now. This is.
Yeah, I am surprised that 18th Juan Manuel Odriozola, the highest finishing Koraidon at 18th. So there wasn't a single Koraidon in top 6 teams, I thought was interesting, because it is definitely like a good Pokemon, and it helps, like we saw how dominant Raging Bolt is this weekend in 2 of the 3 finals matches. Like if you only watch Championship Sunday, like you might come away with it like, wow, Raging Bolt's like the craziest Pokemon ever, and you're kind of right. Like the one game where he was using it was Booster Energy Raging Bolt, and he was using his opponent's Miraidon to help knock stuff out because the electric terrain was just boosting the Raging Bolt's thunderclap damage. Like it was like nasty.
Yeah, I don't know. That sort of stuff, that's always where I find a little bit of difficulty in piloting Sun, is that there's so many like Pokemon that can utilize that you've all of a sudden just kind of set up a little bit more. I even had that issue because I've been playing Sun since Reg C. Shout out Torkoal Slitherwing. But I'd be sitting there. I have special attack boosting Flutter with choice specs. All right, damage is nuts. I send it out with Torkoal. My opponent sends out a Flutter Mane, and it's speed boosting, and all of a sudden I just get bopped. Like, I think that's kind of like a rough thing with the teams. I think the Miraidon in general, it's able to use its own thing that it's setting, in this case the terrain, that it's fine. But the Koraidon, unless you're running fire moves with it, like your signature move does not get a boost based off of the weather. It only gets a boost if it's a super effective hit. And so you're forced into certain types of team building with this Koraidon into something that is all of a sudden, okay, we're looking at this Flare Blitz, we're looking at the Flame Charge. Oh, it'll also have its attack neutralized if it's burned, and we need to make use of these fire moves that we're running with the Sun. All right, well, now we're locked into Terra Fire. Oh, our opponent has 1.5 million Past Paradox Pokemon that also love the Sun. Oh boy, I'm glad that I can't use that and they can. Like, it's just, I think, as much as Scarlet players have had it good for a while, like when we're looking at the difference in the legendary there, that Miraidon is top notch all the way through.
Well, if we look at the usage, because the numbers are actually really tight between the restricteds even into day 2. So Calrex Ice Rider was number 1 on both day 1 and day 2. The highest been 16% on day 1 and then 23% on day 2. But it's really not by a lot. Like Miraidon was about 16%. It was like, so I guess it was kind of 20 or 0.2 percentage points less than Ice Rider in day 1. Shadow Rider was 14%. Terapagos, if you round up, it goes up to 14%. So it does seem like there's this elite class of restricteds, like they are pretty much the entire usage chart. Like, yes, there was Gabby had her 1 Lunala in her predictions that 1 Lunala made day 2. But like when I said in the preview show, I was like, if one of the Sinister 6 restricteds doesn't win NAIC, like I would be absolutely surprised, because they
Sinister
make up like
6.
Yeah, because they make up like, so Ice Rider, Shadow Rider, Miraidon, Koraidon, Terapagos, Zamazenta make up like 90% of the restricted pool at the 3 regionals that we had, and then I don't know the number off the top of my head for New Orleans, but like it is like a sizable difference compared to even like the top Incineroar Urshi teams that are all like 40% of the of teams in and you can have as many of those as you want. You can only have 1 restricted, you know?
Yeah, where things have kind of gone with it have been really interesting. I do think that with Worlds, maybe things would be like up in the air, but I do think while we're in a one restricted format, that it's kind of hard to go away from like those same six. Once we get into double, it'll be,
Yes.
anyone's game, because that'll really enable a lot of other restricted. Lunala is going to be insane and double restricted.
Lunala, Zamazenta, Kyogre, Groudon will be viable as a secondary restricted.
Yeah. But you only have the one slot. It's it's kind of hard for us to not have one of the Sinister Six.
Yeah. I saw it was a name. It was just it was a cute name, Did you actually? No, I was gonna say, did you actually see my Tyranitar meme?
I did.
I was so proud of that one because I love posting that T-Tar meme. Everybody knows I love posting that every time it's on stream. But I was like, I can't just post the same photo for the 17th time. I gotta spice this up. I gotta put T-Tar. He's playing a saxophone and he's cooking jambalaya and eating beignets all at the same time. I don't know how. But I had to, and he was Terra Ghost. He had the Mardi Gras beads as well. T-Tar was living his life down in New Orleans.
Hey, T-Tar deserves a party, all right. It's it's done all the hard work in all these past years of Pokemon. There's a lot better to use right now, so T-Tar just kind of gets to rest.
Yeah, but I mean, besides that, the only thing I've left on my end, at least, Sierra, is our predictions, which, there's nothing on the line, but it's still good to let the audience know, what we were right on, what we were wrong on, you know what I'm saying?
Before that, do we want to talk about usage in general? Because that'll be spoiling things.
What if we do it in tandem? How about we have both of those conversations at once, you know what I mean? Because some of our answers kind of talk about the usage.
I want a deep dive about the usage. I think this was
okay, then go ahead.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about this, because this usage just in general. First off, looking at kind of day one Pokemon, we kind of saw a drop off of Whimsicott at last event, and then it's kind of come back, and now it's back again. I don't know. It was kind of silly stuff, but Qianpao is certified absolutely gone now. No ifs, ands, or buts about that one, which is, I don't know, Qianpao's kind of ran things for a long time.
Well, I've never been more disappointed in the American player base than their lack of Clefairy. Because didn't they just watch Montana win a regional with Clefairy Shadow Rider? And then didn't they just watch a European event where 29% of players were using Clefairy? And then it doesn't even make the top 12 graphic on either day. What are Americans up to? Don't they realize Friend Guard Follow Me is just super good?
Well, we've kind of expanded past that now into streams and stuff, right? But I feel Clefairy is better when people don't have answers or aren't expecting it. And then so once it gets into the high usage that we see, then it's kind of oh, okay, it's time for Clefairy to disappear again. It'll come back another day, right? So I think we're in that sort of era of things. But don't worry if you're a fan of pink blobs. There is a different one instead that made our top usage graphic. Day 2. It was absent from day 1, but Ditto actually making the day 2 top 12 usage, which that one caught me off guard.
That is a surprise because people think it's simple. It just just transforms in front of the Pokemon, and I get my own Shadow Rider, and I'll click Astral Barrage, right? No, it's actually very difficult to play Ditto. One, you're using Choice Scarf, so you have to lock into a move. You have to correctly, kind of predict if you're going to lead Ditto, which slot to put Ditto in, because what you think your opponent's going to put on that side of the field for you to transform into, and when should you stay in to just use their moves versus when should you switch out to reset your disguise for later on. It is not a Pokemon that you can just slap onto a team and get value out of the way that maybe Pelipper or Whimsicott or Amoonguss or something other supportive Pokemon. You can just add those to your team and you'll find a way to be successful. Ditto is not that way.
Yeah, I love because Burns had Ditto on his team for top 8, There was one match where you just like outright let it, and it ended up turning into an Iron Hands, and it was like the funniest thing. But it like
the 3 Iron Hands on the field at one point. That meme.
That was so good. But like, yeah, it's a Pokemon that there's so much necessary like positioning, because you need to take KOs in like a certain way to get the Ditto out in the right place if you end up bringing it to battle. Like it's such a cool Pokemon, but it's also so high risk. So seeing more people kind of pick it up, I think, has been really interesting. This is kind of just like on a bunch of different little teams there. I know Jogarte's used it for like Miraidon, because for LA we got to see the burn, and then Joe face off with the Dittos, despite having the different restrictions.
Yeah,
I think is fun. As well, when we're looking at day 2 usage, I mean, we've talked about the Heligrass types on the usage stuff before. They're technically tied, so it isn't like a true passing, but for all, for the fun parts of things, Amoonguss higher than Rillaboom. They're technically tied, but...
Yeah, I guess according to Arcanine or Dan, who did the graphics, right? Maybe Dan's a big Amoonguss fan, so maybe just gave the alphabetical tiebreaker in the 30.49% to
I think
Amoonguss.
It is alphabetical, because Chiyu and Flutter have the same thing.
Yeah. So, the other this is kind of just like cute thing. I don't know if it actually matters or not, but it is kind of cute that both Incineroar and Urshifu have exactly 46.34% of day 2 teams. That's a cute little thing. It warms your heart, you know?
They're best friends.
There was that post of the champion graphic, and Patrick's first 3 Pokemon were Incineroar, Urshi, and like people are like, Jesus, these 3 Pokemon really do dominate VGC. Like, they're on half the teams. They're on the championship winning team. Like, especially when you run Scarf Urshifu with U-turn, then all 3 of them have access to pivoting, right? Like, it's just, and it's fire, water, grass too. So it's just like such a phenomenal core.
Yeah, it's there's a reason out there, but Amoonguss kind of disrupting that a little bit. So I'm trying to take Rillaboom's place out here. Tragic, frankly.
Pelipper didn't even make day 2. It was 12th on day 1, and then it became the hero of the weekend.
Which is, yeah, that's actually like a really funny kind of thing of it all. As well, Torn and Whim usage, I mean, it dropped overall going into day 2, but there wasn't like one that was significantly higher than the other. It was just overall the Prankster Tailwind Pokemon just kind of buttered out a little.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, all the people that are sticking with Tornadus over Whimsicott, because, like, as, you know, I love Whimsicott. I like that it's a couple speed points faster than Tornadus, so in theory, if you have Taunt, you're going to win that Taunt Prankster battle every time. You're going to win your Tailwind battle every time against Tornadus, so, like, unless these 18% of teams that have Tornadus, if all of them also have the Urshifu Rapid Strike on it, I could see that, so you set the Rain Dance and do more damage with Surging Strikes. But right now, like, I just definitely am feeling Whimsicott better as my Prankster Tailwind setter. We had Rajan had Whimsicott on his team, right? Like, I don't know. If I had to choose between the 2 Prankster Tailwinders right there, I would choose Whimsicott. Or you could just be like Shiliang and use the Booster Energy Speed Iron Jugulus instead.
That is, yeah, maybe that one's not for me, but yeah, I think it's just what your team composition is. That really does depend, because being able to have like the Rain Dance with the Torn, even just weather in general on Torn, I think is super, super good, especially like in this format. And like, it's Whimsicott, normally for the move, you get to see that Encore and that lock-in. So I think it's a team base as well as like a playstyle base, because not everyone likes the Encore type of tricks that Whimsicott would have, and it requires like a certain type of play style. So I'm not surprised to see the community kind of split on that.
Yeah.
Date restricted Pokemon. I mean, Ice Rider is definitely on the come up here. Shadow Rider, like, I thought it would be a little bit more widely adopted for this, and I was very wrong on that.
Yeah, I think it's no shock that Ice Rider is number 1, right? Like, definitely it's understandable that's the number 1 most used was it 16% on day 1 and then 23% on day 2. But I am very much surprised that Shadow Rider is not at least second on either of the days. On day 1, it finished third, right after Miraidon, and then day 2 was actually the 4th most used. Terapagos and Miraidon were higher usage, and I really thought like this is the age of Shadow Rider. Just won the regional. It's back in everybody's mind, and everybody knows that it's a really strong Pokemon. But then there was only one Shadow Rider in cut, and then it's only the 4th most used on day 2. Like I'm just as surprised as you are that it isn't rivaling in usage compared to Ice Rider.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I wish I had an answer on why I thought that was, but I really just don't. Like it's that's a puzzling one for me. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I got really wrong on that one. So that's where
shoutouts to Zacian though, Sierra, who's the we have to come up with a name for this position as like the 8th restricted on the graphic just for aesthetic purpose. Like how it was Groudon for a couple events was just sticking on the graphic so that there'd be 4 and 4 in each row. Because there really is no reason to put Zacian on this list when the next closest is Zamazenta at 8.5%. Like you could just have the top 7, but it looks aesthetically it looks more pleasing having 4 and 4 in the 8 lined up there. So Zacian making the graphic over Groudon, over Lunala, over other, restricteds there. I just think we got to come up with a name for that 8th position.
I thought it was the participation award bond. I thought we already had it.
But I don't know. I mean, like Groudon's participating, he's not performing.
Fair. Well, we'll figure it out.
This is the aesthetic slot,
The aesthetic slot, yeah, perfect. We got that. But all right, predictions.
Okay,
Get into those now.
So,
how bad did I do?
We both did kind of bad, but then also kind of crushed it in certain parts. So some things we were both catastrophically wrong about, but then other spots we were like pretty damn close, if you ask me. So, first question was day 1 top usage restricted. You said Shadow Rider. I said Miraidon. Neither of us were correct because Calyrex Ice Rider was the number 1 answer. But I was more correct than you were because Miraidon finished in 2nd place and literally 0.22% less than Ice Rider. So we can either give neither of us credit there, or like I was much closer to first usage than you were. How do you want to handle that one?
We'll wait to see how the rest, maybe as a tiebreaker.
Okay. Question number 2, day 2 top usage restricted. You said Shadow Rider again. I said Ice Rider, and I got that one.
Yeah, I clearly lost that one. Yeah.
Now this is the one I staked my reputation on this one, and I'm a bum. I have no leg to stand on now. Day 2 Clefairy usage over or under 27%, because in Europe it was 29%. And I said over. You said under, smartly, and Clefairy didn't even make top 12 either day, meaning it was less than a 12% usage mon both days, and I'm not even sure if it was even close to that, even if it was 11, 10, 9%, and it just didn't make it there. I was drastically wrong for this one.
If I recall right, I think I let you have the first pick, and then I just picked the other one. So I can't be like, haha, I won, because I definitely thought Clefairy would do a little bit better. I do think that I don't believe it would have gotten over 27%, but I do think I would have put a lot on the line that I made the graphic, and I didn't do that. So
now this is your Clefairy incident. The next question, because the question was the highest finishing Zacian, and you said top 8, and on top of that, you doubled down in a later question of which restricted will win NAIC, and you also said Zacian. So not only did Zacian not get first, did not get top 8, but the highest finishing was actually 38th.
Pretty damn good. Top 38, baby.
Now when you guess first and 8th, the 38th team was I think that's Ken. Hey, I know he has the Chinese name Heng Wei Zhang, but it's a Zacian and Umbreon team. I could be wrong if I'm misremembering the player. But yeah, 30th place for Zacian. You said top 8. I said top 32. I don't know if I get credit for that because I was technically wrong.
Absolutely not.
But 38th is kind of close to 32. It's closer to
No, because we established on the range. That's the difference, because we established, and you said top 32 to top 16 was your range. Mm-hmm. You could have said 64 to 32, but no, because you were not allowed to get a top 64 to top 16 range and have all of those slots available, while I only had a couple with picking top 8. So no, you get absolutely no credit for that.
Hey, you're the one that said Zashi was going to get top 8 and win. That's not on me. But, I own
that I got that wrong. But we spent like 10 minutes clarifying what range was acceptable for picking the answer, and you said top 32 to top 16. So you get no credit. We both lose.
No credit there. Nobody gets that one.
Absolutely none.
All right, the next question. How many Calyrex Shadow Rider in top 8? We technically both got this wrong. There was only one on Edu's team. You said 3, I said 2. I think that's probably, just like we're talking about the low usage for Shadow Rider, I think that's probably a big surprise if there was only one Shadow Rider in top 8.
Yeah, yeah, no words. Easy, go next.
No words. Sorry, Edu. Nobody else joined you. And then we go back to the next question of which restricted will win NAIC, and you said Zacian. I said Kyogre. I got pretty close. I had 2 Kyogre in top 8 when up to that point Kyogre had not had a relatively impressive finish like that. So I don't know if it's a half point or not. I got pretty close with Kyogre.
Didn't win, but I will give you kudos that it could have. But it didn't.
Okay, that's fair. And then the final question, who will win NAIC? You said Justin Burns, who finished in top 8, the closest we've ever gotten to having a correct prediction, on record. And then, but I want to give myself credit. I said Juan Salerno, and Juan Salerno won on stream twice this weekend. He was the top performing Latin American player. I went out on a limb and said LATAM was going to win. LATAM made top 4. And Juan also bubbled out of cut. So it's not like,
not like an underperformance or something.
Exactly. So I think we both did really well. Technically, you were closer, but usually our rule is we have to exactly get it right.
Yeah, 100%. There's the same as like, you're like, oh, well, I was close with these other answers. It's like, it doesn't count for anything, but I can kind of pat myself on the back that
So, the question is on who wins, Sierra. It comes back down to that first question because technically we both only got one exactly correct. I got Ice Rider in day 2 and you got Clefairy under 27%. But which restricted will win, I was close, but I wasn't right. Your who will win, you had Burns, you were close, but you weren't right. So I think it comes back down to day 1 top usage.
All right, and repeat how that went down again. You
said Shadow Rider, who was at 14%, and I said Miraidon, who was at 15.81, which is only 0.23% less than Ice Rider, compared to your near 2% less than Ice Rider.
I guess that's the math. That sucks, but yeah, I guess that's math.
The math be mathin'.
I guess the math do be mathin'.
I feel like Tyranitar right now. On top of the world with my jambalaya.
It's fine because this one doesn't actually mean anything. It's the world's one where we actually
this next one. Study up, Sierra.
Yeah, honestly, that's where we'll actually. I'm assuming Plushy is the prize again.
Yeah.
100%. That'll be I'm gonna win that, and that'll be like my. I already know that is going to be my. At that point, hopefully, like 6 Slithering Plush. She'll be behind me. So
yeah. That's fair. But honestly, besides winning and losing the predictions, I think we did a pretty good job. I was close on Kyogre, you were close on Justin Burns, but I also threw out Juan Salerno, who did really well. Overall, I think we had a pretty solid grasp on the meta, besides me being wrong on Clefairy, and then I guess your Zacian take. Besides that, I think we did a pretty good job predicting overall what people were expecting to see at NAIC.
We're doing a really good job other than all of these different instances where we're actually really wrong.
Yeah,
is all
but
I heard.
that's all that matters. That's all that all, we're close.
Okay.
We'll get there. By Worlds, we're gonna be like to the exact decimal at Worlds.
100%.
That's how good we'll be.
Yeah, I believe it.
All right, so I think that's our last one because I got to start uploading this episode because we're we're a little delayed on the upload today here. So
not bad.
I think all we have left is our question of the week, right?
Question of the week. Yeah.
All right. I'm kind of slow. I apologize, everybody. Let me pull this up. And our question of the week, which if anyone ever wants to ask us questions at the end of every episode, you can join our Discord, which is in our description below, and join Discord and ask us a question. We can try to answer one question every week. This week is from B-Wing. The question is, what specific piece of Pokemon merchandise item could be found? It could be a game, so or whatever. Do you own that is the most special to you? I.e., which would you never give up, no matter what? Never's a strong term, Sierra.
It is. I mean, I've been thinking about this all episode. We picked the question before, and I have a lot. So for myself, I have a lot of Pokemon merch that I'm attached to. I mean, I have been invested in this game for a very long time, and I've spent way too much money on things, right? But when I think back to something that is like treasured that I would absolutely never get rid of, I don't know if there's something that like quite crosses that threshold, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm trying to think of things and think back. Like, you had mentioned when we had like kind of like picked this question, like I have the giant Piplup, and it's like, yeah, I love my giant Piplup, but like it's not something that it's like I would never get rid of because it's like
someone was like, I'll give you $5,000 for that Piplup, like you would do it.
Yeah. Or like I'm thinking to like, oh well, I'm living in a small apartment and like a bunch of pets, or like something like a moving scenario happens and I don't have space for it and I have to part with it. It's like it'd suck, but like I would, It's not like I have a lot of attachment to it, like being able to have it at NAIC in Toronto is like really cool, but it still doesn't pass that threshold of like, oh my god, super crazy treasure.
So then what if we for you, what if we like change the aspect a little bit of like not something you'd never give up under any circumstance, but like maybe your most nostalgic piece of merchandise or game that's Pokemon related to you that like you look back and you're like, this is like, I get happy when I see this Pokemon thing that I own.
But then that's including too many things. Like that's.
I'm trying to help. I'm trying to give you an answer here.
I know. I'm just like, I don't know if I could say like one overall answer. Well, I think you go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah. So this is pretty. I had to think about it because it's tough, right? Because it's not like I have, a first edition of, Pokemon Red from Japan that's still in the box, or, something like that, right? Like something that is a monetary, like quote unquote, can never sell under any circumstance piece. So I think for me, one thing that my brother and I, and with the help of our parents, obviously paying for it, we were kids. One thing we've always done since the beginning of Pokemon was the Pokemon guidebooks that used to come out with every new game, where they would show you all the mechanics and all the, all the caves and all the Team Rocket, areas, and like you go from A to B to C to D, like the guidebooks that got you through the game and had all the Pokedex entries and whatever. So my brother and I, we collected those throughout the entirety of the Pokemon guidebook run. So we don't have one for Gen 1. I don't think we have a red or blue or yellow Pokemon guidebook, because I don't know if it exists or not. If it does, I just don't have it. But starting from Gold and Silver all the way through, which I believe the last printed guidebook they made, like, and these things are massive, they're like 200 pages long and have all the new Pokemon and all the trainer battles and items and whatnot. Through Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I think was the last guidebook that they made, because I don't think they made it for Sword and Shield. So Gold and Silver through Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, we just have it stacked in our basement in just like every single Pokemon guidebook, and it's just like a cool tradition that we always had. Like, not only did we have to get every new Pokemon game that came out, but we also needed the guidebook, and it was that'd probably be my answer.
That's a good answer. I think where I have trouble answering this question is like growing up, very much so had to like sell older games or whatnot to be getting newer ones. So never really had the opportunity to like be holding on or collecting things as much. I think again, this goes in the category of if I was in the circumstance where I had to, I would, but I haven't yet, and I don't really have a desire to, is the staff mats for ICs and worlds, and that sort of stuff. I really much treasure the fact that I loved this game since I was a little kid. And this was like my whole life as a kid and like growing up. And it was a really big identity piece of like who I was. And then to find my way back into the community and then be in a position to where like I'm representing Pokemon and casting their games. Like that is like 4-year-old Sierra could never. Like I had never in a million years kind of expect that. And to be in that position that at the highest level of this game, I can be representing it. Like I really, really value and really, really treasure that. So I know things like staff stuff from like ICs can go for like a nice little chunk of money, but I haven't done it yet, but I really want to. I want to get the mat. I want to get my staff badge, and I want to get a picture of the event of like being on the casting desk or whatever, and I want to get those framed. And that's, I think, something that has a lot more price to me than just the actual like monetary value to it, that I'd have to say is maybe my most treasured piece.
Yeah, I think it's a good answer, because I was also trying to think of something from London, right? Because that was both of our first, worlds casting. It was like, is it the badge? It's not like I ever like look at my London badge or anything, you know what I mean? So like I didn't know, what to use there. But like also the other reason I like the guidebooks is when I did the tour in Seattle, when I took the tour of the Pokemon office, and they had this like kind of library area. They literally had stretched out against one of the bookshelves was every single guidebook, and I like talked with Will, who was works on one of the producers, and he was the one giving me my tour, and I told him like I have this one, like you can look it out, pull it out, and like read the guidebooks as well. Like, so not only was it significant for me and my brother to have all those, but it's also a significant piece of media, of written media from Pokemon's history, that it's significant enough to be in their official library in the office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that's just like a cool piece all around. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish I had the guidebooks. I think the only one I ever had was Gen 3. Best game, by the way. But yeah.
Best game, by the way. I did see a tweet actually that was it was like what was it? It was like it was like X and Y, it was like meh, and then Sun and Moon meh, but then it was Oras, and then it was like the greatest thing ever, and I was like, oh, that's literally Sierra right there.
Yeah, X and Y was good though. X and Y is actually such an underrated game. Like that slaps. So yeah. All right, before we get into the XY rant, I think that's good for today. I need to go eat, I want to say lunch, I guess, at 4 o'clock of us recording this. It would then be dinner. But, like, is it then breakfast? Because I didn't eat that either. Like, I just, like, I don't know. So I have to go eat.
That's a tough dilemma. Let us know in the comments if you eat your first meal of the day at 4:30 in the afternoon. Is it breakfast? Is it lunch? Is it an early dinner? How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm going to make, like, I'm going to get some fettuccine, and I'll throw some Alfredo sauce on it, and then I'll heat up some chicken nuggets and throw them in there. That's the plan for today. I'm a
breakfast champions chef right there.
Yeah, 100%. So, Vic, we're wrapping this up then?
I think so. I gotta go play some One Piece, Sierra.
All right. So that is it for this week's episode. Again, apologies for the delay. Like I said, it's nobody's fault. But if you're looking for somebody to blame Sierra, because it's 100% her fault. If you want to have your question of the week, interact with an awesome group of people, etc., make sure to be joining our Discord. It is linked in the description below. Apologies again if you are an Apple Podcast listener. I think maybe we got that sorted out. We'll have to chat about it. But yeah, Apple Podcast is something else, and I don't want to talk about it. It sucks. Thanks for your understanding. If you're not listening to this because you're an Apple Podcast listener and you haven't heard our episodes, then apologies. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on OHKO.